I need one more minute, just one.
You look perfect, my daughter.
Mimi.
Michael is waiting. Everyone is waiting.
Mama, look at me. Do I look happy to you?
You are nervous. Every bride is nervous. Come now.
I heard you last night, Mama. On the phone. In the kitchen. I heard every word.
Rebecca!
Do not say my name like that. Not today. Not with his smell still on your hands.
My daughter, please listen to me. You cannot make this mistake.
I am going to walk down that aisle, Mama. I am going to smile, and you are going to watch every single second of what comes next.
The morning of her wedding, Rebecca did not cry. She had spent the night before doing something far more important than sleeping. She had spent it listening, standing barefoot on cold kitchen tiles at 2 a.m, back pressed against the hallway wall, hand over her mouth, listening to her mother's voice float through the darkness like something that did not belong to this world. She had woken up thirsty, that was all, just thirsty. She had padded quietly down the stairs of the Abuja guest house her mother had booked for the wedding party, not wanting to wake anyone, moving softly the way she had always moved through life, careful, considerate, never wanting to be a burden. She had almost reached the kitchen when she heard it, her mother's voice, low and warm in a way that Rebecca had never heard directed at her, intimate in a way that made her stomach turn before her mind even understood why. She stopped. She listened, and in 60 seconds, the entire architecture of her life collapsed. Her mother, Helen, was on the phone with Michael, Rebecca's Michael, the man who had proposed to her on the rooftop of a Port Harcourt restaurant 14 months ago with a ring he said he had saved for 6 months to buy. The man who cried at the proposal. The man who told her she was the only woman he had ever truly chosen. That Michael. Her mother was on the phone with him at 2 a.m, the night before their wedding, speaking in a way that left no room for any other interpretation. 8 months, that was what Rebecca pieced together standing in that hallway. 8 months of something happening beneath the surface of her life while she planned centerpieces and chose bridesmaids' colors and argued lovingly with Michael about whether the reception playlist needed more high life or more contemporary gospel. 8 months while she drove her mother to fabric shops and sat beside her at tailoring appointments and thanked God every single day for a mother who loved her enough to give everything to this wedding. Rebecca stood in that hallway until the call ended. Then she walked back upstairs, sat on the edge of her bed and did not move for a very long time. She did not scream. She did not throw anything. She did not call her best friend or her cousin or anyone who would have told her to run. She sat in the silence and she let it settle into her bones like something permanent, like something she would carry forward rather than collapse under. And somewhere in that long, quiet darkness before dawn, Rebecca made a decision. She was going to walk down that aisle. The church in Maitama was everything she had dreamed. Ivory roses banked every pew. Candles lined the altar in tall glass holders. The choir had been rehearsing for 3 months, and their voices that morning filled every corner of the building with something that felt almost holy. 300 guests filled the seats. Family, colleagues, friends, people who had traveled from Enugu and Lagos and Calabar to witness this day. Michael stood at the altar in his charcoal suit, looking like a man who had done no single wrong thing in his life. Tall, composed, handsome in the way that first made Rebecca pause when they met at a work conference 4 years ago. He was speaking quietly to his groomsman when the doors opened. When he turned and saw her, his face broke into the smile she had loved for so long it had become part of her internal furniture. She watched his face from the end of that aisle and felt something she had not expected. Not rage, not grief, Something colder and more precise. Clarity. The kind that only comes when every illusion has finally burned away and what remains is just the truth standing bare in the light. She walked toward him. Helen walked beside her, one hand tucked into Rebecca's arm, the other holding a small bouquet of burgundy roses that matched her dress. She could feel her mother's fingers trembling slightly against her skin. She did not look at her. She kept her eyes on the altar and she walked with her back straight and her bouquet steady and her face arranged into the expression of a woman arriving at the best day of her life. Because that is exactly what this was going to be. Just not in the way anyone in that building expected. The ceremony moved through its early stages without interruption. The opening prayers, the scripture readings, the choir's rendering of a worship song that made 3 elderly women in the front rows press handkerchiefs to their eyes. Michael held Rebecca's hands during the first address and squeezed them gently, and she squeezed back and smiled, and he smiled, and the photographer captured it, and it was beautiful. Helen sat in the front row with her hands folded in her lap and her face composed into proud maternal serenity. Rebecca could see her from the corner of her eye. She had looked like that her entire life. Composed, commanding, the kind of woman other women described as strong. The kind of strength Rebecca now understood that had no bottom, no limit, no boundary it would not cross. The officiant reached the vows. He asked Michael first. Michael turned to Rebecca and spoke his vows in a clear, steady voice. He had written them himself. She had known that, had been moved by it when he told her weeks ago, had imagined herself crying through every word. He spoke about choosing her, about finding in her something he had never found before, about the kind of love that did not waver. Rebecca listened to every word. Then the officiant turned to her. The church was absolutely silent. Rebecca looked at Michael for a long moment. Then she looked at her mother in the front row. Helen's eyes were wide now, just slightly, just enough. Rebecca turned back to the officiant and she smiled. I need to say something before I say my vows. I need to say something to everyone in this church. The officiant blinked. Michael's expression shifted. A murmur moved through the congregation like a current. I love this man, Rebecca said, and her voice was steady and clear and carried to every corner of that building. I have loved him for 4 years. I gave him everything I had. My time, my loyalty, my future. I planned this wedding the way you plan something you believe in completely. She paused. Last night, I found out that for 8 months, the man standing in front of me has been in a relationship with my mother. The silence that followed was not ordinary silence. It was the kind of silence that has weight, the kind you can feel pressing against your chest. Someone in the back of the church made a sound, then another person, then the murmur became something larger, and Michael's face had gone the color of ash, and Helen was on her feet now, one hand reaching forward as if she could physically take back what had just been released into the air. Rebecca did not raise her voice. She did not need to. I am not doing this to cause a scene, she said, looking out at 300 stunned faces. I am doing this because every person in this room came here to witness a covenant, and I will not stand at this altar and build my life on a foundation that was already rotten before the first brick was laid. She set her bouquet down on the altar steps. She looked at Michael one final time. He opened his mouth. No sound came out. She looked at her mother, Helen, had sat back down. She looked smaller than Rebecca had ever seen her, folded into herself in a way that made her look like she was trying to disappear. Take care of each other, Rebecca said quietly. You have already chosen each other. Now live with it. Then she walked back down the aisle, alone, bouquetless, back straight, head up. 300 people watched her go, and not a single one of them made a sound until she had passed through those doors and they closed behind her. The weeks that followed were not easy. Rebecca would not pretend they were. She stayed with her cousin Angela in Lekki for the first month, sleeping in the small second bedroom and waking some mornings with the weight of it sitting on her chest before she was fully conscious. There were days she did not eat well. Days she sat by Angela's window and watched the street below and felt something close to nothing, which was in some ways worse than feeling everything. But she did not collapse. She had a job she was good at. She was a senior procurement officer at a logistics firm in Victoria Island, and she was very good at it. The kind of good that had nothing to do with who she was married to, or who her mother was, or any external thing. Just competence built quietly over years. She went back to work 10 days after the wedding that wasn't. She sat at her desk and she did her job. And when colleagues looked at her with the careful eyes of people who had heard things, she met their gaze evenly and gave them nothing to work with. She filed the necessary legal document to dissolve the engagement. She changed her next of kin details. She removed Helen's name from every form it appeared on. She did all of it methodically, the way you clear a space that has been cluttered for too long. She did not call her mother. She did not respond to Michael's messages, which came in waves. First desperate, then apologetic, then angry, then desperate again. She read none of them past the first line. She had heard everything she needed to hear in a dark hallway at 2 a.m, and there was nothing either of them could say that would add to or subtract from that. She focused on what was in front of her. 6 months after the wedding, Rebecca's firm offered her a position heading a new procurement division they were opening in Abuja. It was a significant promotion, more responsibility, a small larger salary, a small team reporting directly to her. She accepted without hesitation and moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in Wuse that she furnished slowly and deliberately, choosing each piece herself. She built a life. Not loudly, not as a performance for anyone watching, just quietly and with great intention, the way she had always done things when no one was making decisions for her. She made friends, real ones, the kind formed in the aftermath of loss who had no reason to be anything but honest. She traveled twice, once to Accra for a procurement conference, once to London simply because she wanted to see something new. She started running in the mornings, something she had always meant to do and never made time for. She read more than she had in years. She slept deeply and woke up without the weight on her chest. And one morning, she realized that she had not thought about Michael before noon. And the morning after that, she did not think about him at all until evening. And then one day, she woke up and simply did not think about him. She was 31 years old and she was fine. More than fine. It was Angela who told her when it started to unravel for them, not with any satisfaction in her voice. Angela was not built that way, but simply because she thought Rebecca should know. Michael and Helen had apparently attempted something, a relationship openly, after everything. It had lasted 4 months before the weight of what they had done to each other and to Rebecca made it impossible. The community they lived in, the church circles, the family connections, the social networks that ran through every level of Lagos and Abuja life had not been forgiving. People talked. People always talked. And what they said about a man who had been found out at his own altar and a mother who had betrayed her own daughter was not kind and did not soften with time. Michael's business, which had been growing steadily when Rebecca knew him, began to struggle. Some of it was the economy, some of it was the deals that quietly did not come through, the partners who found reasons to step back, the clients who simply stopped calling. He moved out of his Abuja apartment into something smaller, then smaller again. Helen lost the standing she had spent decades building. The women's fellowship she had led for 11 years asked her quietly to step down. Her sister, Rebecca's aunt, stopped speaking to her. At family gatherings, she appeared at the edges, no longer at the center, and people were polite in the careful way that means nothing good. Rebecca heard these things and felt them pass through her without lodging anywhere. She was not happy about their suffering. She was not unhappy about it either. She She simply received the information and went about her day. Michael came to her office on a Tuesday morning in the second year. He looked different, thinner. The easy confidence she once found so attractive had been replaced by something careful and diminished, like a man who had learned to take up less space. He was shown to the waiting area and he sat there for 40 minutes before Rebecca's assistant came to tell her he was there. And Rebecca sat at her desk for a long moment before she said to send him in. He sat across from her desk and he looked at her, and she watched him try to find the words and fail and try again. He said he was sorry. He said it multiple times, in multiple ways, none of which were quite adequate and all of which she could see he meant. He said he did not have an explanation that would make sense of it. He said he had thought about what he had done every single day since that morning in the church, and none of it looked better from any angle he had tried. He said he had lost things he had not understood the value of until they were gone.
Rebecca listened to all of it. Then she said, "I believe you." He looked up. "I believe that you are sorry," she said. "I believe that you mean every word. And I want you to know that I do not hate you. I spent a long time making sure of that, because hatred would have cost me energy I needed for other things." She leaned forward slightly. "But I also need you to understand something. There is nothing you can say in this room today that changes anything. Not because I am punishing you, but because I have already built the life I was going to build with you. I built it alone, and it is better than what we would have made together, because I built it on ground that is solid." Michael nodded. His eyes were red. "You can go," she said gently, "and live whatever life you have left well. That is genuinely what I wish for you." He stood. He looked at her one more time, then he left. Helen came 3 months later. She did not come to the office. She came to the apartment in Wuse on a Saturday morning and stood at the door, and when Rebecca opened it, her mother looked at her with eyes that had aged a decade in 2 years and said nothing for a long moment. Then Helen said, "I do not deserve to be here." Rebecca looked at her mother. This woman who had braided her hair and attended every school prize giving and held her hand through every hard thing, and somehow, impossibly, also done this. And she felt the full complexity of it move through her without destroying her. "Come in," Rebecca said. They sat at the small dining table with tea between them, and Helen talked. She did not make excuses. Rebecca had braced for excuses, and there were none. Helen talked about weakness, about a moment that became months, about shame that had not stopped accumulating since the day her daughter walked out of that church alone. She talked about the fellowship, about her sister, about sitting in a house that had become very quiet, about understanding, too late, what she had traded the most important relationship of her life for. Rebecca listened without interrupting. When her mother finished, Rebecca said, "I am not going to tell you it's fine, because it is not fine, and it will not become fine. What happened cannot be made into something it is not." Helen nodded, eyes down. "But I am also not going to carry this for the rest of my life. Not for your sake, for mine, because I refuse to let what you did take up permanent residence inside me." She reached across the table and placed her hand briefly over her mother's. "I forgive you," she said. "Not today fully, not all at once, but I am choosing it, and that is all I can give you right now." Helen pressed her hand to her mouth. Her shoulders shook once, then she steadied herself the way she had always steadied herself, and she nodded, and she looked at her daughter with eyes that held everything words could not carry. They sat together in that quiet apartment as the Abuja morning moved around them. 2 women, 1 table, the long, unsentimental, necessary work of what comes after. Rebecca poured more tea. Outside, the city went on, and so did she. Was Helen wrong to come back? Should Rebecca have forgiven her or walked away forever? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched you, Please like and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs it today. And drop a comment. We want to hear from you. God bless you.